I'm with Tyler Harper, who is the co-founder of Homegrown Storage. And today we're going to dig into how he got involved in storage and give you guys some tips on all the things he's working on and some of his insights. So, Tyler, maybe just kick us off with an intro, kind of your background, how you got into storage, and we'll go from there.
Great. Yeah, thanks, John. So we definitely did take the traditional route to storage. Chase, Chris, and I, the three co-founders, we met about 10 years ago now at this point, which is kind of crazy, back at Georgia Tech. We all kind of went our separate ways. I studied finance and engineering. They were both engineers. And then we all stayed in touch over the years. I actually lived with Chase for a bit. Kind of over that time, we started a software company and bought a storage facility. And we kind of fell in love with storage. We ended up shutting down the software company despite it growing. And we realized, wait a second, there's all these storage facilities that are out there that we can help with our tech that we built for our storage facility. So now we're literally driving around, meeting owners, grabbing coffee, grabbing a slice of pie at the diner, and just talking about their story, how they got into it. We've heard everything under the sun. And then we try to see if we can partner with them to do a deal. So that's kind of the 10,000 foot view.
Tell me a little bit quickly about the software company a little bit. What did you guys build over there?
Yeah, so Chase actually started one for restaurants that got hit with COVID. Then all three of us, after that happened, we started a Shopify app that tracked packages. And so we had engineers, it was growing quickly. And then I think while that was happening, when we bought the storage facility, we decided to, take some of that same engineering prowess, apply it to the storage, and kind of build both up in parallel. And we realized the Shopify stuff was working, but there was already a bunch of people there helping, create really high-tech tools and processes for Shopify. But for storage, specifically in smaller markets where, people don't typically go, there's really no one with some cutting-edge tech. So a bunch of our families are from more rural towns. Chase is from Jasper, Georgia. And so really going in our backyards, experimenting with some of that tech. And then, it was really interesting how the two kind of flowed together.
That's a really cool background for storage of the technology piece of being able to kind of build your own custom tools that you guys can use in-house. That's going to be like a sort of a big competitive advantage versus everyone else who has the same tools that are publicly available. And you guys can kind of build that on the fly too as you go. Are you guys working on anything right now? Some new tools?
Yeah, so we are. So we have a whole suite of tech that we're kind of continuing to work on. We have some world-class software engineers working on it. In parallel, we're also working on a bunch of forward tech that we're actually going to be releasing for free in the next couple of weeks. And so I don't know where we'll put all of that, but it'll be hosted. We'll be sending it out on our newsletter. So if you're a storage owner and want some free pretty interesting, cool tech tools that will help you.
So transitioning from software to storage, what have been like some of the things you guys have run into, maybe like challenges, things you kind of maybe didn't foresee, and what's that looking like?
Yeah, so everyone tells you entrepreneurship is hard, but you go and buy a facility and then at 6 a.m. you get a call that someone's driven through 150 feet of fence, or you get, there's all sorts of stuff. So I think just sitting back, developing the tools needed and the processes needed to, solve stuff like that as it comes up, because stuff always happens. So I think going from the software world to, the real estate world, really, I think some of those harder lessons were on the ops side, which we're now really good at.
That's always something you kind of adapt, figure out as you go and build out the processes. I think the engineering background though would definitely is nice for like thinking through those problems and building out all the management side and operation side. What are you guys doing in terms of how you're going to like differentiate from a lot of the other competitors that you have, whether it's like the REITs or some of the smaller competitors? Is it mostly the tech that you feel like that's going to be your biggest edge, or is there anything else you guys are looking at?
Yeah, so it's really a function of the tech. Really no one else has this, and it's a big differentiation, but also it's where we go. So, driving around, you see storage facilities everywhere. The REITs are really good at managing in some of the Class A markets. Where we're going is in some of the smaller markets, places that the tech doesn't typically get to, and those are what we really specialize in and what we're building everything for. And so if you run a really small facility, that's our target.
And that's where you have a big advantage too, because those other small facilities aren't using any or very little tech, and then you guys have your proprietary stuff on top of it. So it feels like that is a nice way to break into that. Now you analyze a lot of the deals. I know you do a lot of acquisition work. Give us some tips. Tell us a little bit about your process, kind of what you look for, maybe what other people can kind of work into what they're doing.
Yeah, so we we pound the pavement. I think we, especially where we're at, which is some of the larger or some of the smaller towns, people trade on trust, and we do as well. Like, we want to know who we're working with. They want to know who they're working with, more so than a dollar figure, which is super important, and that's just kind of the clearing bar. And we can get a fair, attractive price. But I think more than that, they want to know, like, who carries their legacy, et cetera, et cetera. And so we drive, we meet them. I was in Burrell, Mississippi a couple weeks ago. No, last week. Next week, I'm driving to Alabama. The weekend after, I'm driving to Michigan. And we just hit a bunch of facilities on the way and shake owners' hands and talk to them.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, like building the real relationship. It's hard to, when everyone cold calling and using VAs to do things, you got to find a way to do something different or actually get that actual relationship with somebody. So you guys are actually driving, you're going all over. How do you actually approach someone like that? Do you show up at the facility and just start talking and
Sometimes.
trying to get, yeah.
It's all about just being a real person at the end of the day, and not, big Wall Street, which we're not, or being, someone who's hitting 500 calls a day and just trying to hit their quota.
Now that you're building out free tools for people, I feel like you can, when you're talking to these owners stuff, now you have something to even give them. Like, hey, we have the suite of tools. Do you want to use it? We'll give it to you for free.
Yeah, and a bunch of people have asked to use our software, and ultimately we want to build something really big, and that's why we're doing this. And we're excited kind of about the opportunity, and we think that owners will really like using all the free tools. And we've talked with a bunch of people that have asked, like, specifically for things, and we'll build it for them and then just make it available to everyone.
I've been talking to a lot of people about acquisitions, and like everybody has a different method, but if you have something unique that, like, very few people are going to be reaching out to owners with, they've developed free tools and like software to use for storage. That's a really nice way to be memorable, and you're adding value too, because now they're going to get value out of the tools. They're going to remember you gave them those tools, you helped them maybe improve something, and now you have a nice relationship where whether it works out to a deal or not, you still at least are building those connections. Are you guys planning on selling and like building an actual SaaS platform that you sell to the industry, or are you more thinking keeping that internal but having some free tools that help some people out?
Probably the latter. So we want to create the best business we possibly can and grow it in the right way. And right now what that looks like is, acquire facilities we really like with the owners we like and trust, and then keep all of those tools internal, other than the free ones we're giving away. So kind of like the main brain that sits behind everything, that's what we'll be keeping. But, down the road, maybe we share it, but at this point, probably not.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that for what you guys are trying to build is going to tie in nicely. Have you guys thought about doing any third-party management or anything, or are you guys more interested in just doing your own deals and building that up?
Yeah, we've been approached several times. We're managing a couple right now, and it goes well, but ultimately it's actually a bit of an agency problem, because if your ultimate intent to buy a facility, if you want to buy it and you're managing it, then when you're managing, you're increasing the value of the facility. So then you're making yourself pay more later.
Yeah.
Managers are kind of at this weird in between, like, do I manage poorly and then buy, or do I manage well? We always like to manage well, so we try to avoid that by either just buying it outright, or by saying, hey, we'll manage it, and then we're going to give you this price in 3 years, and we'll manage to that price, which kind of removes a lot of that agency problem.
That's a really good point too, because it doesn't really make sense in the first scenario. Either you do a poor job and then you could buy it, or you do a great job and now the deal
and then it's more expensive. And so, it's every management company faces that problem, and they all have to answer it their own way. We will always do the best job we possibly can, and so we just try to remove that potential problem at the very beginning.
How does that second scenario work? Would you sort of like agree on the price you're going to buy it at beforehand, and then you do the value add work, you improve it, and then when it gets to the point you're ready, then you agree and
Exactly.
you're ready to
We've done
acquire.
that 3 times now. So, it's resonating. People like it. It's definitely atypical though.
How do
Love and
you
manage to own.
start that conversation for that? Is it just like feeling out once you know kind of what their goals are as the owner, and then you can see which ones it makes sense for?
Yeah, it's uh, we like to give the owners, a couple options, and then it's kind of choose your own adventure. We're pretty creative, and we like to work with owners on price and terms and all of that stuff. And so we'll literally drive or over the phone and just chat like, hey, here's your facility. Tell me about it. Tell me what you want to sell it for. Tell me, why you got to that number. Okay, if it makes sense, let's keep talking. And most of the time, it does.
Another tool you have in the toolbox there of there's all these options you can kind of do to make something work, and then it's just another thing that maybe it makes sense in some of the deals, maybe it doesn't, but you have the option. Also, man, what are some of the biggest lessons so far? Now that you guys have been running this, you're acquiring facilities, you're in there operating, trying to get more. What have kind of been the initial lessons you guys have learned so far?
You always expect it to like happen sooner than it does, and that's probably true of everything.
Yeah.
But it's been good. We bought our first facility in April of 2022. We spent the first year really building the software required to run it like we wanted to run it. And then we bought our second facility in Tennessee to see if we could run across state lines. And we spent another year working on that and bolstering the tech even further. And now, we feel really comfortable where we're at, and we have the capital and we're ready to run.
I think there's something to that too of I don't know if patience is the right word, but sort of like you're chipping away at things like over the long enough time, you start to look back and see like, okay, we actually did all this that year. Now we made this progress. Now you're ready to operate in multiple states. So as you start scaling and adding more facilities, you've already proven out a lot of different concepts and you're starting to continue to build out the tech too.
But again, we're flexible. We like dealing with the owner directly, and we'll just call them and talk through whatever comes up and go from there.
Yeah, and let's close on this too. What do you see coming up in the future here in terms of trends or things maybe you guys have your eye on? Maybe it's other ideas for tech or just other things you think might hit the industry. What are you guys kind of focused on like a couple years out?
Yes. I think that the trends more broadly, I think a lot of people will be selling in the next couple of years, just as people are retiring. You hear the term silver tsunami kind of tossed around. We're really excited about that, especially because as we've learned, there's not a ton of buyers, that these owners trust. And so like we want to work hard to be that buyer. I think there's also a bunch of weight on like interest rates and what those do. If all of us are being real with ourselves, we don't know what the interest rates are going to be in 5 to 10 years. Like we can guess, and so, keeping a pulse on that. So I think those are kind of probably the two main drivers.
So Tyler, too, where can people find you if they want to connect with you anywhere?
Yeah, Homegrown Storage, or you can email me, Tyler@homegrownstorage.com. Reach out on LinkedIn. I'm available to talk.